This is Farnborough Airshow Radio.
I'm on board the C130 Hercules here with Ryan and Nick. What is the role really of the C130?
The C-130 is a tactical airlifter. We're responsible for bringing cargo supplies and people base to base within the war zone and in peacetime. Do a lot of airdrop, things like that.
Okay. Thank you. And Ryan, how many tours, if you have done any, how many tours of theatre have you done?
I've done 2 in the Afghanistan theater of operations, and then I've done 1 in the Iraq theater of operations.
And what are the defence mechanisms on this aircraft to keep you safe almost when landing?
We're equipped with countermeasures that are suitable for this size of the aircraft, and then we have some protections that we wear both personally on our bodies to protect us from small arms fire, and then we also have some protections that we can put inside the aircraft to protect the cockpit and some of the scanning positions. And
Nick, this is a different type of C-130 Hercules. What is it? What is different than the old one?
This is the latest and greatest of the C-130 Hercules. C-130 Hercules first flew in 1954. When it came off the line, they had the A models. We're up to the J model now. We have updated engines, new props, updated avionics. Back here, I'm a loadmaster. This is my house. We have the enhanced cargo handling system, so they've totally revamped the cargo bay. We have electronic floor locks, flip rollers, all that kind of stuff. It took everything that was great about the 130 originally and just made it better and updated it for the 21st century. It's a really great aircraft.
So what's the maximum range for this aircraft?
Maximum range, we really do it in terms of hours of flying, typically about 8 to 9 hours or so, depending on the winds, fuel burn, things like that. Several thousand miles. Absolutely, we crossed the Atlantic, so.
So on a day-to-day basis, what does this aircraft actually do?
Day to day, we do a lot of training. We're always training for our mission, always loading things, practice a lot of airdrop, things like that. When it's not in maintenance, of course, our maintainers do a fantastic job keeping it flying. So we're always training. The pilots are always training takeoffs and landings, and we're always back here training loading and airdrop.
And Ryan, what's your role as part of the C-130 crew?
Sure. So I'm a instructor pilot. So we have 2 roles up in the flight deck of the aircraft. We have an aircraft commander, and then we'll have a flight pilot or an FP that acts essentially as a co-pilot for the airplane. So as an instructor pilot, it's just like it sounds. So helping to train new aircrew and keeping current aircrew up to speed with any changes in our operations and how we operate the airplane. Yeah.
Perfect. So you're from Rhode Island, so how do you fit into the Air National Guard?
So the Air National Guard basically is a component of the United States Air Force, just like the Army National Guard has its component as well. And we make up a reserve component of the Air Force, so we all are fully trained to the same standards that our active duty counterparts are expected to be trained to. The difference is Nick and myself have civilian careers and civilian occupations outside of this. So our role is to stay as maintained and as qualified as possible. And then when the nation calls us to service, then we have to step forward and go and do that role in a full-time capacity. And that's how we really fit into the overall military picture in the U.S.
So you have like pages, like you see in the films where they're at work and then suddenly it goes off and you have to just like drop everything and run?
We don't have that exactly, but I mean, we're always in contact with our unit. Traditional guardsmen like us, even though we are traditional guardsmen and we're part-time, we're always in contact with our unit. We're always training, like I said, so that we can be ready to go at any time.
The great thing about the C-130, there's lots of aircraft in the U.S. inventory, in the Air National Guard and the Army National Guard, that serve a purpose other than just combat applications. So the great thing about the C-130 is we could be called in a scenario like you talked about, if there was a humanitarian relief effort that needed to be happened stateside, or disaster relief is pretty common. Those things happen on a whim, so you don't have preparation time for those. And Nick and I may be called to support a local community or a community somewhere far away in the States and in the event of a disaster to help out. And this airplane's perfectly suited for that kind of stuff besides its usual combat role.
Here at Farnborough, we've seen the A400M display every day. What are the main differences between this and the A400?
Oh boy. I'm not terribly familiar with the A400. I do know that the A400 sort of fills the gap between, its purpose is to fill the gap between the C-17 and the C-130. I don't know that gap actually exists. I think the C-130 does a fine job. I think the C-17 does a fine job for what it is. I'd be interested to find out more about it. I did see the flying display. It was very impressive, but I'd have to find out more.
Is there any chance of a look at the flight deck, please?
Absolutely. We'll go right up.
I'm here on the flight deck with Ryan. So Ryan, what's the difference between the 2 seats up at the cockpit?
Okay, so the two seats have traditional roles. The left seat in a fixed-wing airplane is traditionally where the aircraft commander or the captain of the airplane will sit. In the right seat is typically the job of the co-pilot. And specifically in the C-130, there's a nose wheel steering control that's only provided to the left seat. So the aircraft commander or the pilot typically flying will sit in that seat and operate the aircraft from that position. The controls are here, so both can be operated, though, in flight, no problem from either side.
Why does this aircraft have turbines, whereas the C-17 has jets?
There's lots of different applications. So depending on the role of the airplane, you have different engines that suit different needs. A C-17's biggest mission, although it can do many others, is strategic airlift. So you need large, powerful engines that are really efficient at high altitude and long distances. So you can take stuff maybe stateside to a theater of operations over, say, in the Middle East. These kind of engines wouldn't be the best choice for that. Their range would be limited, their speed and altitude would be limited to do that. But what we have that we can do really well is if we wanted to land in a small strip, say a grass or unprepared surface like a dirt landing strip, these blades can get the efficiency that we want to get in and out of there with the best power, but also provide a way of braking using reverse thrust as well. And that kind of stuff combined with the dirt and dust that would be kicked up is best suited for these kind of motors versus a large jet engine.
And you said there about speed and altitude. What is the maximum speed and maximum altitude for this type of aircraft?
It's 340 knots, what they call true airspeed at our cruise altitude for us. And our altitude can vary depending on the load that you're carrying in the aircraft, but you're looking in the low 30,000 foot range on most missions. However, those are our limits. The airplane's really meant for lower altitude, shorter range missions. So it's an airplane meant for what's called tactical airlift, so short legs over small distances at low altitude.
How many crew do you have on here? Because we've just seen that there's a bunk bed at the back, so are there 4 or 5 of you in here at any one time?
There can be, yeah. You can have quite a few crew. The basic crew is 2 pilots, so it would be like you and myself flying the aircraft, and then we'd have at least 1 loadmaster. In a combat scenario or a more mission-oriented profile that you were flying this, you'd want at least 2 loadmasters back there. The bunks that you see in the back of the airplane are for longer missions, trying to maybe bring the airplane to a theater of operations. In that case, you might want some relief crew. So those bunks are provided to maybe have some extra pilots to swap out crew.
What's the lump on the front of the nose for?
The nose of the airplane houses the aircraft's radar. So the aircraft radar has multiple functions. The first and primary that you're going to see in most airplanes, like if you got on a typical airliner, is it's going to be a weather avoidance radar. So it's able to go ahead and determine on screens like this where most significant precipitation is so that we can avoid it and have a safe and smooth flight. The other thing that the radar also offers, though, to us is we can actually adjust the radar in such a way that it maps the ground to determine our position or to find the location of something we might be looking for. So it's got a twofold purpose.
And we can see here these things drop down. What do they do? Because there's something like stuck on the front of this. Are they magnifying glasses or do they light up?
In a bit, that's a great way to say it, is a bit of a magnifying glass. You'll have to forgive the crude picture that we've pasted up there. But what that's for is because we don't have power on the airplane, we want you to see what that would actually look like in flight if you were flying it. That's called a heads-up display, or pilots call it just a HUD. So the HUD is a projector just above the top of your head. And that projector is going to take the flight information, so airspeed, altitude, heading, all the things that are critical to the pilot while you're flying that normally aren't on a display like that. And they're going to project it up in what's called your field of vision. So now if you and I were flying and we were at low altitude, say a couple hundred feet off the ground, our biggest focus would be safely keeping us away from terrain. Well, if you were heads down trying to look at your instruments, you'd have a hard time dividing your attention between the two. Looking through the heads-up display, you're able to do that now safely. All the information's right at your eyes, and you're actually looking through that information out to the surrounding, surface behind or in front of you, rather. So it's a bit of a way to, not only magnify what you're seeing, like you said, it's a good way to think of it, but to really provide some great situational awareness is the kind of buzzword that we use in flying.
I was speaking to Mark Johnson yesterday at Lockheed Martin, and he said that the F-35 pilots have the head-up display on their visors. Is that something you could get in the near future?
For the C130, the application probably isn't as detrimental as it would be in, say, a fighter. That gives them an opportunity to, conduct missions that they really need. For us, really, the biggest place we're looking is straight out ahead of us. What we do have, though, that augments our vision for that is we wear night vision goggles as well when we fly this airplane, and those night vision goggles mount on our helmet also. So the night vision goggles, we do need a little bit more field of vision. So we put those on our helmet so that we could look outside, sideways if we had to. And that's great, especially for ground operations or even in flight.
Thank you very much. Have you got?
This is Farnborough Airshow Radio.